everyone. Here is Andrew Robinson, your Jamaican brother, always waiting to listen. And I'm reaching out to our brothers and sisters on the African continent. You're tuning into Black Hot Fire Radio, and you're listening to.
You're now listening to the best music. Just a little jeans and a pure white tee. She never did forever be nobody wifey. She told I mean a pretty but your heart is amazing. Now you like a villain cause she caught in a way. Tonight I am
Feel the freshness.
You're now listening to the best music.
I'm glad that I'm calming down. Can't let no one come control me. Keep dancing and call it love. She fights it by falling slowly. If ever you are in doubt, remember what mama told me. Brown skin girl, that skin just like pearls. Your back against the world. I never tried you for anybody else. A brown skin girl, that skin just like pearls. The best thing in all the world. I never tried you for anybody else.
And now, introducing the debutantes and the lows.
Pose like a trophy when Naomi's walking. She need an Oscar for the pretty dark skin. Pretty like a Peter when the camera's closing. Grip up the levy when my killer's rolling. I think tonight she might pray her pray. Melanin too dark to call her shade. She minds her business and winds her ways. Roll like 24K. Okay. Tonight I might fall in love, depending on how you hold me. I'm glad that I'm calming down. Can't let no one come control me. Keep dancing and call it love. She fights it by falling slowly. If ever you are in doubt, remember what mama told me. Brown skin girl, your skin just like pearls. Your back against the world. I never tried you for anybody else. A brown skin girl, your skin just like pearls. The best thing about the world. I never tried you for anybody else. Oh, you looked in the mirror lately. Wish you could trade eyes with me. Cause there's complexities in complexion, but your skin is glow like diamonds. Dig me like the earth you be giving back to everything alive, baby, know your worth. I love everything about you, from your nappy curls to every single curve, your body natural. Same skin that was broken, me, same skin taking over. Most things out of focus, you, but when you're in the room, they notice you. Cause you're beautiful. Yeah, you're beautiful. Women gon' fall in love with you in all of your glory. Your skin is not only dark, it shines and it tells your story. Keep dancing, they can't control you. They watching, they all adore you. If ever you are in doubt, remember what mama told you. Skin girl, skin girl, your skin just like pearls. Skin girl, back against the world. I never trade you for anybody else. Skin girl, skin girl, your skin just like pearls. The best thing about the world. I'll never trade you for anybody else. Brown skin girl, your skin just like pearls. Your back against the wall. I'll never trade you for anybody else. Brown skin girl, your skin just like pearls. The best thing about the world. I'll never trade you for anybody else.
Skin just like pearls, best thing in the world. I never trade you for anybody else singing.
Come on, welcome again, family, to Let's Walk with Ewerton, Beyonce over there, Blue Ivy Saint, and Wizkid. with Brown Skin Girl. My name is Ayrton Longoria. You can download our app on the Google Play Store, stream on www.blackwhitefireradio.network.com for amazing healthy supplements, apparel clothing with the Black White Fire Radio logo on it, going back to some organic products. So if you're not eating healthy, we got you. Just stream on www.blackwhitefireradio network. If you're using the iPhone or the computer, click on the organic section of it. You'll find amazing likes of ashwagandha, beetroot, honey coffee, and other likes multivitamin. You'll also find apparel clothing with the Black Hot Fire Radio logo on it. Again, my name is Ayrton Longoria for the ones who are joining us on BitChute, Rumble, and YouTube. Welcome again. Today's conversation is how Africa's geography traps it in endless poverty, or basically the boundaries that we do have in Africa, making Africa a 54 countries, states within 54 countries, however you can actually put it. But welcome to the conversation here with me. Before we move forward, let's listen in to the health and benefit of some of the supplements we do have for you, so you'll definitely not have an excuse for not ordering some ashwagandha, multivitamin, brain focus, or beetroot.
Discover the natural power of ashwagandha, an ancient herb known for its healing properties. For over 3,000 years, ashwagandha has been trusted to reduce stress, increase energy, and improve focus. Our ashwagandha is carefully grown, harvested, and processed to retain its maximum potency. Each root is hand-picked and dried, then ground into a pure organic powder, ensuring the highest quality. Simply mix 1 teaspoon into your favorite beverage or take it in capsule form as prescribed by a healthcare professional. Whether you're looking to balance your stress levels, boost your immune system, or enhance mental clarity, ashwagandha offers a natural solution. Experience the benefits of ancient wisdom backed by modern science. Trust nature. Trust ashwagandha. Go get this product at blackhotfirenetwork.com at the Sports and Nutrition Store.
$23.90, you'll definitely get your ashwagandha. But welcome again to another conversation. It's always a great time to be alive, having conversation about redefining Africa as we redefine ourselves. Again, the conversation is about how Africa's geography traps it in endless poverty, and also mainly talk about why there is back and forth of not having a united African economy. And is it an impossible dream, or it is possible? Because we definitely have a united African economy. That means that all the borders are open for us to trade with each other, because that has been super hard to do. We do have East Africa doing really, really amazing. And we did have Ghana recently open its borders to Africans, which is really, really nice. Can you imagine if every country did the same thing? That means our GDP will definitely spiral ahead, and we'll definitely be doing amazing. We also do have our own industries over here, actually manufacturing our own products, not actually importing a lot of things that we produce, because it doesn't really make sense that we produce a lot of crops and products, but also we're definitely exporting them to be imported back to us in a very, very low quality. But welcome again to the conversation. My name is Ayrton Longoria. But really delve into this conversation. First of all, we'll talk about why Africa is low GDP. Why is there a low GDP in Africa? And we'll talk more about the issues of it. Is it the political instability or corruption, weak institutions? Which is which? And basically we'll talk about the economic challenges of why this is happening. Is it poor infrastructure, trade imbalances and inflation, or high debt? Then we'll definitely delve into the environmental and demographic pressures of rapid population growth. Not really, because we definitely believe Africa is the crown of life, and we're definitely a land of abundance. So we cannot say it's rapid population growth. You'll definitely hear more about that. But we'll talk more about why Africa is actually fighting its geography. It's basically trapped in its geography trap, and that's why there's lots and lots of empowerment. Before we move forward, let's listen into this video in regards to what's happening, and then we'll definitely dive in to the more conversation about why Africa GDP is low, because it's basically because of the boundaries that we're talking about right now.
It's well known around the world that Africa is by far the poorest continent in the world by just about every kind of metric you want to measure by. If you want to look at countries by their nominal GDP per capita, a whopping 24 out of the bottom 30 of them worldwide are all located in Africa. If you want to look at countries by their Human Development Index score, a full 27 out of the bottom 30 of them worldwide are also all located in Africa. Africa is the least urbanized of all the world's inhabited continents. It is the only continent where a majority of people continue to live in rural communities outside of cities. Only 43% of Africa's population in 2024 live within cities, compared to 53% in Asia, 74% in Europe, 81% in Latin America and the Caribbean, and 82% in North America. People born in sub-Saharan Africa today are expected to live shorter lives than anywhere else in the world, with a life expectancy as recently as 2022 of only about 60 years from birth. Multiple decades shorter lives than people born across Asia, Europe, and the Americas are expected to enjoy. And if it isn't the continent's crippling poverty that is the most well-known fact about it in the Western world, it's the frequent wars and conflicts that have been continually fought across Africa for decades now, with no less than 5 conflicts fought across the continent since the 1960s that each killed more than 1 million people, and more than a dozen others that killed hundreds of thousands of people. And all of Africa's poverty and conflict is despite the fact that Africa is perhaps the richest continent in the world in terms of natural resources, especially mineral resources. Nearly half of all the gold ever mined throughout all of human history has come from Africa, and about 1/5 of global gold production today continues to take place there. Africa has the largest known reserves in the world of diamonds and platinum, in addition to phosphate rock that's vital for fertilizers, cobalt that's vital for battery production, and bauxite that is vital for aluminum production, in addition to some of the world's largest reserves of copper, uranium, oil, and natural gas as well, and a whole bunch of other resources. The Democratic Republic of the Congo alone, Africa's second largest country, also called the DRC, has been estimated to have recoverable mineral resources worth around $24 trillion within its borders at 2023 market prices. And yet, the DRC's entire GDP in 2023 was only a little more than $66 billion, meaning that the resources present in the country are worth more than 360 times the country's current total annual economic output. Africa's modern poverty is despite this abundance of resource wealth, and also despite the fact that humanity as a species originated in Africa in the first place, which should have, in theory, given African peoples a generous head start of tens of thousands of years over their cousins who migrated out of Africa and settled in other continents. It's not a situation that you might really expect at first, and throughout the past century, there have been many theories proposed and put forward to attempt and explain all of this. Some that have been proposed honestly, and some more pseudoscientific and racist that do not merit any further analysis. The truth is, there isn't one single explanation that will easily answer why Africa is so poor today. There were numerous, maybe even countless explanations behind it that range from the lasting negative effects of colonialism and the slave trade that were wrought on the continent, to the continued neo-colonial exploitation of many African countries into the present, to the rampant corruption that has been endemic in many
I can remember that in the Berlin Conference in 1884, this is what really took place. They actually came together and had a meeting in regards to who owns who, and actually separated Africa into this little fragmentation of countries. And that's why we're not divided. First of all, the divide and rule, we did have that come up. We did have different parts of European powers with interest in Africa to create borders of ownership. So we definitely understand how our GDP, basically the economy is Africa, as I've said, it's basically it is the wealthiest nation of all time in raw materials, in terms of minerals and resources. We definitely know that. But after the Berlin Conference, everything happened the way it did.
African society since the end of the colonial era. Africa is an enormous and extremely diverse and rich place with a huge amount of history. It is not a single giant monolith that attempting to explain the entire continent's poverty through just a single lens or from just a single perspective will never satisfactorily give the entire picture. And trying to give you that whole picture to fully explain Africa's poverty would fill up volumes of books and thousands of pages. Any attempt to explain Africa's current poverty in any shorter context, such as this video, will inherently be an oversimplification and leave a lot of context and nuance out for the sake of time. Nonetheless, in this video, I will be specifically looking at how the geography of the African continent, in my opinion, has severely handicapped and held the continent's peoples back for generations throughout its entire history, from the ancient past right up through the present day, and why geography has therefore been a major contributor to Africa's chronic poverty that exists today.
Or the borders that we do have right now, the borders we do have, and the fact that we do have 54 presidents in Africa right now. That's the problem. We can take a nation like the United States of America, ruled by only or governed by one president. Different states actually governed by governors and senators, I believe. And look how it's going, even though basically other foreign nations are actually doing better because of Africa. And that was the actually big trick, because they knew if they divide Africa into this little fragmentation of countries, they'll never actually come together with one vision, with one goal. Their GDP as an economy will definitely never be never actually top it up, because it's not doing well. Understanding that Africa is not one of the wealthiest nations of our time in terms of minerals and resources, why is it still impoverished? Because we do have people who did set or signed the General Act of Berlin, an agreement regulating European colonization and trade in Africa during the new imperialism period. That's what really happened. And the Berlin Conference of 1884 to 1885 was a meeting of the colonial powers that concluded with the signing of the General Act of Berlin, deciding which European power takes which part of Africa. And we see that happening up to date. And we do have gatekeepers who are still playing along with what was actually signed in 1884.
First of all, it's important for you to understand how truly, utterly massive a place that Africa really is. You could fit no less than 3 United States, including Alaska, within the African continent. In fact, you could cram in the United States, China, India, Greenland, the UK, France, Germany, Spain, and most of Eastern Europe all into Africa and still have room left over. Because of this huge size, the distances involved across the African continent are far greater than most people assume. You will notice that unlike Eurasia, Africa stretches far longer from the north to the south than it does from the east to the west. The distance from the northern tip of Africa down to the southern tip is roughly 8,000 kilometers, about the same distance away as Portugal is from Nepal. Now, because of Africa's length and its location on the Earth's surface, it is also very notably the only one of Earth's continents that straddles the Tropic of Cancer, the Equator, and the Tropic of Capricorn, meaning that it is the only one of Earth's continents that extends fully throughout the entire tropical zone. The climates that are found throughout Africa vary significantly when you travel from north to south across large distances, but they vary much less from west to east across much shorter distances. From north to south, you will go from a Mediterranean climate to a desert climate to a semi-arid climate to a grassland climate to a rainforest climate, back to a grassland climate, back to a semi-arid climate, before finally returning back to a narrow Mediterranean climate again in the very far south. These climatic shifts across the continent from north to south are significantly more extreme and variable in smaller distances than the shifts you will find in other continents like in Eurasia, which stretches more wide west to east than it does tall north to south. As a result, Eurasian climate zones are significantly larger and more contiguous than they are in Africa, where the climate zones are smaller and more fragmented and splintered. Moreover, Africa has substantially larger amounts of desert, semi-arid, and jungle-type climates and environments than seen in places like Eurasia, where agriculture and livestock herding is substantially more difficult to perform. The Sahara Desert, in particular, is the world's largest hot desert, and its location and size has served to isolate the rest of the continent beneath it from the rest of the world for thousands of years now. A region of the continent known as Sub-Saharan Africa. The Sahara is an absolutely massive and extremely inhospitable place, coming in at roughly the same size as the entirety of the United States.
Absolutely. We'll come back and talk more about how Ghana is actually or expanded or opened its border to Africa, to other African countries, and why that should definitely be the case with other African nations. Why not? But to definitely understand the people we do have as leaders and who they're actually following or actually taking demands from. But we do have some economic challenges that are actually facing Africa, and that's why the GDP of Africa is actually not in a good place right now. We can talk about the fact that the borders I've actually mentioned right now, and the fact that we do not have, if we did have open borders, I believe we'll definitely have open roads connecting from different parts of Africa to the north, south, east, west, name it, East Africa. But we don't see that quite a lot. We do have gaps in transport, energy, and ICT infrastructure, which should definitely increase trade and costs and reduce global competitive, but we definitely do not see that happening. Fact that I've talked about trade imbalances, that's actually a really big factor to actually view in regards to the economic challenges. As I said earlier, we do have East Africa doing quite amazing, and I'm really sure that Ghana is actually topping that up as actually they've opened their borders to other African nations. But the nations or other African nations that have actually opened up their borders, can the rest of the nations do the same thing? Because it will actually ease the trade going on within Africa. We need a lot of trade to actually move in Africa than other foreign nations. I want to play this video.
Hey everyone! In 2025, Ghana will open its doors to all of Africa. This is huge. It means anyone from Africa can enter Ghana without a visa, no more complicated paperwork. This sends a powerful message to the world. Ghana is serious about African unity. Ghana is leading the way. Other African countries have done similar things. Rwanda, Seychelles, Gambia, and Benin already welcome all Africans. Ghana's president, Nana Akufo-Addo, made this decision. He believes in a strong and united Africa. He made a promise at the Africa Prosperity Dialogues. He promised to make it easier for Africans to connect. He is keeping his promise. This is about more than just travel. This is about bringing people together. It's about breaking down walls. It's about making Africa stronger. Ghana is setting an example for the rest of the continent. Can you imagine a future where all Africans are united? This is a step in that direction. Get ready, everyone, because Ghana is changing how we travel. This new policy is a game changer. Imagine a future where
I'm also seeing a lot of diasporas actually moving to Ghana and Kenya.
African passport is your ticket to Ghana, no questions asked. That's right, starting in early 2025, citizens of all 54 African nations can pack their bags and head to Ghana without the hassle of visa applications. This isn't temporary. This is permanent. President Akufo-Addo signed off on this big decision back in December.
This should definitely be the case in other African countries. Mostly if the Ghanaian president, that reparation actually, I'm not sure if it's the same, that actually she doesn't really talk highly of him. Maybe this is one thing that he did better, maybe for his own good, I will definitely know. But it's actually working for a lot of Africans, or basically to strengthen Ghana as a country, because we definitely understand that our economy is not that good at all, which it shouldn't be the case. But sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do to strengthen your economy as a country. But it should be the case to strengthen the African economy. We should not be saying strengthen the Kenyan economy or the Ugandan economy or the Tanzanian economy. Should definitely be strengthening the African economy, because as I'm talking right now, in my head, I'm seeing this as one Africa. I'm not thinking of the many countries, 54 countries we do have. It will actually be easy. But the hard part is we do have a lot of leaders who are governing all these 54 countries will not take it because everybody wants to feel important as a leader. So they're like, I still want to be the president of this country. I still want to have how many cars escorting me. I don't think it's gonna be so easy for them to actually step down. But thank God we definitely do have a super awakening generation coming up who question things and they understand how things should definitely be aligned.
Showing Ghana's commitment to a more connected Africa, this is a clear message. Ghana is open for business, for tourism, and for working with its African neighbors.
It's so beautiful that Ghana opened its borders to Africa, but also I want to mention the rest of the African countries that have opened their borders to other African citizens. We do have Benin, we do have Rwanda, and Seychelles, which offer visa-free entry to all Africans. Kenya recently, absolutely, just a few months ago, joined this group, opening its borders to citizens of most African countries. Additionally, regional blocs like the East African Community and ECOWAS have implemented agreement to ease travel, though national policies and implementation can vary, with some countries in these blocs also allowing entry with national IDs. That's amazing. Like really, really good. If you can actually just enter any African country with a national ID, that should definitely be it. You can just go to Nigeria, you can travel to South Africa, you can travel to Benin, you can travel to Rwanda with the national ID. What's wrong with that? So you do have countries with fully visa-free access. Benin offers visa-free entry to all African citizens. We do have Rwanda, we do have Seychelles, and the Gambia. It's a good thing. That's the number of African countries. So we're basically on the right track. We also do have countries with visa-free access for many countries. See, this happened this year. I definitely remember we talked more about this. Kenya. Since July 2025, the country allows visa-free entry for citizens of all African countries except Libya and Somalia. So also we do have Ghana that we're talking about right now has pledged visa-free travel for citizens of all African countries with a policy officially implemented. South Africa, that really happened quite a few years back. We have South Africa that does allow Africans or travelers from African countries, though it may have specific requirement. I believe maybe it's for security purposes, and I'll definitely understand that before a lot of people start actually getting familiar with that. That definitely makes sense. Even in other African nations that I've mentioned right now, we do also have other examples that I want to give of open borders policies of these open countries that have actually offered visa-free access to their nations. We do have regional agreement, which is more about many countries participating in regional blocs like the East African Community, which have protocols to allow for easier travel between member states. We do also have the national ID travel, and in some cases, citizens of specific countries within these blocs can travel using only their national identity documents instead of a passport. That is so fire. Like, that's amazing. I'm definitely looking up to the day where people just travel mostly within Africa, as it should be with their national identity cards.
This groundbreaking move didn't just happen. President Akufo-Addo has always believed in a more unified Africa. He sees a future where the continent's potential is unleashed through working together, free movement, and shared success. This visa-free policy shows that vision. Akufo-Addo believes that Ghana's future is tied to Africa's future. He understands that by strengthening ties within Africa, Ghana will benefit economically, culturally, and socially. This visa decision is a big step towards making that vision real.
Because that's how it's supposed to be. That's how it's supposed to be. That's how it was before the colonization era. People could move from one part of Africa to another. from south to east to west. Nobody actually asked you where you're going, what's happening, until some group of individuals decided you should not definitely do that. And it's still happening until people start questioning that. We do have the likes of Dr. Arikana, P.L. Lumumba, Joshua Maponga, amazing Pan Africanist individuals, the likes of Natalie Yam, mostly always talking more about this. And if you're always standing on truth, you see mostly a lot of Pan Africanists, they also have stories of how they've been abducted, threatened. There's a lot that comes with it if you stand on truth. And that's why we do have Dr. Arikana talking about why is Africa still looking up to the West for approval. We shouldn't, because we shouldn't. We never used to do this until we were told that we are not good enough. We were told that we should definitely look up to other people that we were not looking up to, adopted their culture, adopted their way of doing things. And I believe that actually played a very pivotal or vital role on how the economy of Africa is right now.
What about the educational curriculum? Because that's where it begins. They don't want us knowing our history. They don't want us knowing where we came from. Because if you are a person without a history, who are you?
Who are you?
Where do you come from? As Africans, we're too busy running away from who we are. We don't want to embrace our Africanness. Why not? If you refuse and don't accept your Africanness, then who are you?
Our history was scraped off of us, and that's why we did have a lot of new history that was written, people's stories, not actually our story, but what we're supposed to learn about ourselves, which was all lies. It's nothing about who we are. It's nothing about our African identity. It's nothing to do with our spirituality. And I shared a video, I believe on Monday or Wednesday, of Dr. Umar talking about the brain is a repetitive organ, that every day or every time you read something or you're taught something, each and every time about who you are, about how the world works, that's what the brain will always remember.
Okay, Elizabeth. And I said to myself, now I am going to go to bed tonight with the shadow of Queen Elizabeth hanging over me. What kind of dreams was I going to have that night? I nicely found time. I called my VP and I said, could you help me take his photograph down? We shall put it back tomorrow morning. Because tonight I intend to have good dreams. Why is it that in 2024 we still have the photograph of Queen Elizabeth hanging over the walls of hotels in Ghana, and not a single photograph of a king or chief from Ghana? We know when it comes to West Africa, the document that African countries were made to sign as they attained their quote-unquote independence, the document that's labeled the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization. On one hand, we are giving you your independence, but on the other hand, we want you to sign this document, agreeing to continue to be colonized. And if you choose not to sign this document, in my pocket, I have a gun that has your name, Guinea and Mali. They chose not to sign the document. That France moved into those countries, poured concrete into the sewage pipes, destroyed schools, hospitals, roads, anything that could be destroyed, they destroyed. Anything that they could pick up and take back with them to France, they took. They even took the last pencil. This was done as a way of letting the other African countries know that should you refuse to sign this document, this was the fate that awaited you. You have to give up 85% at that time of your bank reserves, deposit them with France. Those funds, once gone, they're not coming back.
I believe they should have stood their ground and said no, regardless. Understanding this is my land, this is my world. I'm not going to be victimized in my nation.
All your minerals discovered and yet to be discovered belong to France, and French companies had the first right of refusal. Your language of instruction shall be French. Your military can only be equipped by France. Your military can only be trained by France. You must give up control of your finances. You must give up control of your natural resources. You must give up control of your military. Now, if you stay away from those, you're free to run your country as you wish. What kind of a country are you running? What kind of a leader are you? To this day, those African countries are still required to deposit their bank reserves with France. Now, the numbers have gone down some. They're down to the 50, 55, 60. But by and large, with the exception of Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali that said, France, pack your bags and go home. The rest of the African countries are still subjected and held to the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization. But our leaders, for various reasons, and we know those who have tried to pull away, they've either been assassinated or exiled.
No, General Mosquito, it's not a recent speech. It's always been there.
So the realities are there, that if African leaders try to push back, there's some serious consequences.
That's the reality, as she said. That's the true reality, and that's what we do have. We have a lot of African nation. Actually, the whole Africa, it's super impoverished, and the fact that they've been pushing for the aid and the organization that push for aid in Africa doesn't really work. Makes it worse, actually.
In spite of all that, there are some other issues.
But the question is that I've always been asking: do we need more conscious leaders, or we just do have leaders who cannot stand their ground, regardless?
That they also could deal with. We know the NGOs are nothing but wolf in sheep's clothing as they come into our countries. A lot of embassies as well. We have a few nice embassies. But we have many countries that are also just here to make sure that they continue to destabilize the countries.
Absolutely.
They make sure that the elections are forever interrupted. Why is it that we are all fully aware that the loans that are being given to African countries, the loans that have been given to African countries for centuries, are frivolous loans that have been paid 1 million times over?
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that our ministers of finance every year, twice a year, they go to the World Bank? They know what's going on, but they say nothing. What is keeping us as Africans from coming together and speaking with one voice and letting the World Bank know and the IMF?
General Mosquito, I definitely agree with you. And we see that happening in this generation. We do have a lot of individuals who are actually speaking for themselves, leading themselves. We see that happening right now. We see a lot of youths who are not following the leaders that we do have as leaders because they understand their agenda and they now deeply understand the fact that, oh my god, you've been here for years and centuries and nothing has ever changed, like in my county or in this country, so why are you here? And they actually feel that gap and they're like, you know what, we gotta think for yourself. And that's basically what's happening during Mosquito.
That we have paid for these loans a gazillion times over. We ain't paying for them no more. What are we afraid of? Why can't we just say it like it is? It is damn wrong. And it cannot continue. But we are afraid. You see, they defeated us where it matters the most. That even things that we have the ability to change, we are afraid of changing them. When the Europeans first came to Africa, they brought us religion. And then we went to church. And they taught us about a human being called Jesus Christ. And they talked about the angels. And they talked about who are in heaven, a place we all want to go to. They're beautiful, they're angelic, they're desirable. And oh, by the way, they're white. And oh, by the way, we are white, like the angels. But remember, in school, they told us this was white. But never mind how we look. We may look rather pinkish, but don't disregard that. We are white believers. Then they turned around and said there's something called hell. And there's a devil there. Ugly, undesirable, does all the horrible things, and that creature is black. And oh, by the way, you too are black. Never mind this black color that we told you in school.
I can definitely agree with you 100%, during Mosquito. You've actually said, don't you think the government is a reflection of the people? Maybe during our parents' time, absolutely. But right now, what I can say, we do have a generation that is rising and they're free thinkers and they understand what's happening, mostly politically, like 100%. But also, as Dr. Ari Connor has mentioned right now, and it's something we definitely know, she said we do have a lot of foreign nations in African countries to make sure that Africa is never stabilized, and also to make sure that the votes do not align. That's their purpose over here.
A blatant lie was told to us. And we have never stood up to say that's a damn lie. I'm not black. They're not white. You look like the devil because we told you so. We look like the angels because we told you so. So it is when a little 5-year-old black boy is given 2 sets of dolls, black dolls and white dolls. And he's asked which one is mean. He points at the black one. He's asked which one is ugly. He points at the black one. He's asked which one is nice. He points at the white one. Which one is beautiful? He points at the white one. And then when asked which one is more like you, he sheepishly points at the black one. The 5-year-old boy is defeated before his life even begins. Somehow, there's subliminal messages that this boy just knows it. Think about it. So that Samuel boy who grew up to be the Minister of Education, he's not going to like anything to do with him. So yes, European history is what weighs out. African history? No. You, African educators, you don't.
African history is so important, like very, 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 very important. That was as actually my favorite subject in school. I loved history so much. Like, I'm still in love with history. Definitely makes sense right now. I just loved history. I loved everything. I was fascinated about how everything used to be before I was born. You know, only to be fascinated about things that are not true. You know, that's the trick over there. But if I did learn about the African identity, the ancient history, that would definitely be something else. I believe I'll definitely learn a lot of things that I could have learned because the things I learned right now is not about me. It's about people who discovered Africa, foreigners, European individuals who discovered Africa, not knowing that nobody discovered you, honey. Nobody discovered your lake, your mountain. It used to be there before even they existed. So clock that.
Read your own work in order to be tenured. Many professors to be tenured, they got to write 10, 20, 30, 40 papers. And those papers can only be reviewed in Europe, in the United States, by credible universities. So I said to the professors, you don't trust each other. You are not credible. If you can't trust each other, why should we parents trust you with our children? To be tenured in universities in Africa, your work has to be reviewed outside Africa. What's wrong with having universities in North Africa send their work to Southern Africa? Universities in West Africa send their work to East Africa. But no, black professors are going to be reviewing. It's not acceptable. They won't have the same weight. Stupidity has got to come to an end. It is filtering through to everything that we are doing. I am telling you, my brothers and sisters, we are the laughing stock of the world.
That's a fact.
The current U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, I'm going to call her. She was fired by President Trump when I was going to Washington. She used to come to my office and she would say, Ambassador, talk to the ambassadors. They need to speak up. When she was the former Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, she said, Ambassador, I'll be sitting on this side with the American side, and there'll be the Africans over there. She said, if they could just say some obvious things that would help her come back and make decisions and recommend certain changes. But the Africans don't speak. Tell these ambassadors to speak up. Why are we afraid? Because
we should definitely learn to speak up, and that's why we definitely see Burkina Faso basically emerging, being the best version of itself. We do have a saying that says, until the lion learns how to write every story, the hunter will always be glorified. Until the lion learns how to write or to tell its story, the hunter will always be glorified. So it's up to us as African to actually speak for ourselves, to stand for ourselves, to question every act that is actually maneuvered in our continent. We did have Jerome Mosquito actually saying that I think we need more people to grow up and lead themselves. Absolutely, I definitely agree with you. We definitely need more people to grow up and lead themselves, because you're not going to learn about this in school. It'll take quite a long time for the educational system to be changed. So it's up to you to actually go back and learn about the true history about who you are. It's going to take a long time if we do have Ngugi wa Thiong'o's book, Decolonizing the Mind, being distributed in every educational institution. but will you go and actually take a look at it by yourself? Are you interested knowing about your African history, your African identity? Because some people are still being led on how the West is actually influencing everything and their agenda on how Africa it is or is right now. But it's up to us to actually change that narrative. As she said, Africa is the laughing stock of the world. It's a fact. But it's up to us to change that narrative. Because nobody will come and actually do that for you or for me. It's up to us to actually say no to every crap that has actually been installed in Africa. You can actually put it the way you want and actually change the narrative. And it's up to us to rewrite our own story the way we know it should be. That's our part to play. So the question is which gap are you filling in your path as an African? How are you actually moving in your path to actually redefine Africa? That should definitely be a good question. If you're a musician, if you're an artist, I don't care who you are, whatever career you're in, whatever path that you're actually in, how you actually redefining, most importantly, the place where you come from, the most wealthiest nation of all time. And what truth do you know about Africa? And what truth or what lies were you actually taught about your own continent? And how can you actually do better by changing that narrative?
But defeated where it matters the most. The man. So no matter how hard we try to change our Africa, until we heal from the legacy of colonization.
Absolutely. The mind, we have to heal from that. We have to accept how everything has been, heal from every lie, scrape it off, and start over again.
Nothing we try to do is going to succeed. If we don't heal from the legacy of colonization, we will continue to be used as instruments of our own self.
Absolutely.
I challenged ECOWAS.
Until you actually learn to live in the Ubuntu spirit. Appreciate your own brother and sister. Support your own brother and sister who's next to you. That's how it starts.
When they were trying to mobilize a military to go.
And your sister is the Ugandan lady, the Tanzanian brother, the Nigerian sister. That's how it is.
And fight Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. Oh, we can have a coup. I said, help me understand something. France has had coups against these nations for centuries.
Absolutely. I'll definitely share the last video over here that I shared recently regarding Dr. Umar talking about the brain is the slave to repetition. So how are you actually decolonizing your mind as we're almost winding up?
But at the same time, if the parents are still getting to them more than we are, we're going to lose. The brain is one hell of a creation, but guess what? The brain is still the slave of repetition. You follow me? You could be telling the truth, but you only tell it once a week. I could be telling him a lie. I'm telling it 25 times a day. It don't matter how true your truth is. Guess what he gonna believe at the end of the day? Me. It's like the black woman who gets verbally and physically abused by her lover. She's gorgeous. Halle Berry is an example. She has been in some emotionally abusive relationships. Halle Berry is a beautiful woman. But after somebody tells you 50 times a day for 10 years that you are ugly and unattractive and nobody wants you, I don't care what you see in that mirror, you're going to believe the broken message. So we have to understand
facing this about Africa and how we've been told and how we've always heard that African is poor, African is impoverished. and you're in Africa and you live here, you can see that we're actually so rich in everything, in the economic, social sectors. But the fact that we believe that lie and it's being repeated over and over and over, you actually start to believe it.
Repetition is what rules the mind. What did Adolf Hitler say? And I'm no Adolf Hitler fan, but the architect of the Nazi propaganda system was a white psychologist named Joseph Goebbels. He taught Hitler how to hypnotize the German people against the European Jew. Adolf Hitler said, come up with the lie, keep the lie simple, don't let it be complex. If you want to control people's minds, what you're telling them got to be simple. This is a psychological principle. He said, make sure the lie is big, because people will question a small lie. They'll never question a big one.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And make the lie repetitive. Tell it over and over and over again. And that's why when you watch German propaganda movies during the Hitler era, what do you always see? That swastika.
And that's why every person right now, ask anybody who's not an African, maybe in Europe, in Asia, the United States, what do you think about Africa? They'll tell you Africa is poor.
Wherever you go, you see
a very big lie, but a simple one, right?
Swastika. Hitler used the basic principles of indoctrination and the basic principles of repetition to almost take over the whole world. Nothing wins like repetition. When you go into the military, it's not every day of basic training repetition. You do the same thing every day, all day. You hear the same message every day, all day. And after 3 months, they took a corner boy and turned him into the greatest Marine the world has ever seen in 3 months through repetition.
For times, the brain is the slave to repetition. It actually talks more about it. I'm pacing that conversation on how Africa is viewed by the rest of the world, or basically how Africa's mind or the Africans were actually colonized, and how can we decolonize our mind by actually learning about our African history, going back and relearning and learning everything, and also by reading Ngugi wa Thiong'o's book, Decolonizing the Mind. That has been my time, family. Thank you for the ones who joined me. General Mosquito, thank you for joining in. Thank you for contributing. You can download our app on the Google Play Store. Stream on www.blackwatchfirenetwork.com for amazing healthy supplements. Apparel clothing with the Black Watch Fire Radio logo on it. As usual, you are the change you need to see in the world. On Let's Pop with Eorton, we're always talking about redefining Africa as we redefine ourselves. Have a productive, fun, restful weekend. Remember, you are the change you need to see in the world. Much love and have a beautiful one.
Get ready. The hits keep coming.
Here is Andrew Robinson, your Jamaican brother, all the way in Switzerland. And I'm reaching out to all of my brothers and sisters on the African continent. You're tuning into Black Hot Fire Radio. And
you're now listening to the best music of the hottest tracks and coolest mashups of the moment.
I can never be afraid. Feel the freshness.
I was the child of my father. I give thanks and praise. And I'm here with the spiritual armor. Make the anointing spray. First of all, make a pour before man will see. It's a silent war up in DRC. If you're poverty born and the through you seek, the new Africa was born to fulfill the dream. Can't forget the powers that's instilled in me. I know say there's powers that been shielding me. I told them from 9A to BBC that we the Africans who know what the children need. So fall back, we can take it on our road. Black man stand and we're sitting on the throne. Ruling everywhere, yeah, we're killing on the globe. And we're building back our home in a different kind of zone. I came with the spirit of something other. I can never be afraid.
Feel the
You're now listening to the best music. 1 hour of the hottest tracks and